Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our work session. This is the Iroquois Board of Education. I call this meeting to order. And we have, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And our meeting really is just a work session for us to discuss and develop our board goals for the 2023-2024 school year. And so with that, let's start discussing. I know that Jim is planning on attending our meeting. He did send me an email saying that he was on the thruway. There's been an accident and he will get here as quickly but as safely as he can. So we're hanging on for him. But I think we can go ahead and start by just kind of taking a look at what our goals were last year and seeing if we thought we met them and how they went. So the first goal was to support the
Well, I was going to say, even before you start that for the public,
Sure.
It might be good to revisit what are the board's main three goals so the public understands that there are district goals, billing goals with the three main charges of a board being working with the superintendent, hiring a superintendent, overseeing policies, and overseeing the budget. Those are the three main functions of a board. And then on top of that, you have district goals, which is where the district is going. And then you have building goals, which where the principals are taking their buildings based on the district goals. So they all kind of feed back in. I think we call it cascading goals. Something, I go over at the new board orientation when people come in. We go over that. I think we are also talking about having maybe a training or something on that too. So, just for the public to hear that too. So why are you talking about this when you talk about education, to put it in a framework?
Yep. So, any questions or comments? Okay.
I do, I guess. I don't know. I always struggle every year with board goals, and this 15 years now. I look at the current goals here, and I could almost say you can roll those over because things change every single year. We have new board members every single year. We have, new policies every single year. We have, a new budget every single year. We always hear about transparency, accountability, communication. That should always be a goal of ours, is to better communicate with our community and all of the stakeholders, that we have. So, I could be totally wrong, but I really don't, if you've got a good set of goals, you want to achieve that goal year after year after year. And again, it's because our environment changes. It's not like we're going from, second grade to third grade, and second grade is all over with. So we have that continual change. So if we have that good, that vision and that good set of goals, I would think that they wouldn't be all that different from year to year. Naturally, again, because things are different, we may, spot something that we would want to, make a goal. But again, that's just my take on it. And like I said, personally, I've always struggled, with the goals every single year.
Chuck, I agree with you with the goals and the objectives, but maybe just adding some bullet items under each objective on how we're going to achieve those goals might be just to give it a little bit more substance and what we can measure ourselves. Because right now, I just think some of them are a little bit too broad.
So, Jim did send me something, that is, rather than 3 goals, it's more 2 goals, and then, each one has, pinpoints underneath them. Let me read the first one so you can get a feel. He wrote, "The Board of Education will provide oversight as the superintendent and administration work to foster an inclusive school environment where all students, teachers, family, and staff can thrive and feel valued and appreciated. The environment at Iroquois should be free from bullying and unnecessary stress. All members of the Iroquois community should feel secure in their daily experiences and receive all needed communication in a manner they understood." And then under that, he has A, students, teachers, families, and staff should have roundtables with the board without the presence of administrators. B, administration should put an anti-bullying plan into place, including seminars for all students, teachers, family, and staff. And then C, superintendent and administrators will continue to search out new communication methods to evaluate current ones for effectiveness. I like some of the things that he says here, but it feels like it's an awful lot for it to be just one goal, and some of it is, I think, out of our lane, where we're really starting to delve into, what should be discussed more as district goals in our summer planning session. And there was a document that was sent out to everyone earlier with another board member's ideas about our district goals, and I felt the same sense. But what that tells me is that we have to have some discussion about, does our board feel like we're not moving in the right direction anymore? Should we have done more in our summer planning session to talk about the direction the district is going in, that we're moving in? Is there something that the board feels is missing? Because it seems to me like when we start talking about board goals, we've got a lot of people who are talking about things that aren't actually our role, but more the role of, district planning, which then makes me think, we've got the strategic plan going on. Is our strategic plan not actually effectively moving us in the direction that we want to go in? Are we focused so much on trying to check off boxes in our strategic plan that we've lost sight of some of the other aspects of the district? And if that's the case, we still need to set our board goals, but I think we need to have conversation with our administrators about maybe January one-day sit down to talk about where the district is headed and what kinds of things we'd like to see change in the next school year, because you can't do that now. It's September,
What I pulled up there is something that I lovingly lifted from multiple organizations. NISBA, one of the law firms we work with, came in and presented it. The page before it is similar, but it doesn't have the arrows of how they're accomplished. So if you look at what the board is, it's the what and why, and that's how you establish that in policy, and then how that's implemented. That comes back. It says superintendent, but really it's superintendent administrative team. And then we make recommendations of how much and how well. That comes back to the budgeting. And so then that's where the budget's approved, and then we implement those. So when you talk about this, it gets very interesting, because when I worded it, was very specific wording I used, where the BOE goals are under and overreaching them are the district goals. So how is the board in their roles reaching the district goals? And a lot of what you said there, like with bullying, I can tell you right now, the administrators work on that every day. Every single day, have practices, and when you start saying, well, they're going to have seminars on it or speakers coming in, you are now taking over the administrative role, not even of the superintendent, but of the building level administrators of how they're doing it. I think Jim's right in what he's saying is these things should happen. So I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying that would come under funding. Should we put more funding towards outside speakers? Should you maybe make a policy that we say there should be a policy that outside speakers are an important part of kids' education and buildings should be using them? So it's where the board is putting these in, which then if you start making policies that definitive, you can start micromanaging too. And that's the hard part, where the goals for the board, to me, are how is the board going to act and what are you going to work on as individuals in supporting the district goals that the administrators should be doing how, where, and when, and by whom. And that's the piece. So where is the board looking to improve in that support? If it's in bowling, where does the board want to improve? Because it doesn't do the work. I equate it to the president flying over where a hurricane just went through. He doesn't do any work. In fact, I think he just went to one location and they said, well, maybe he shouldn't be here because he's distracting from the work. And he said, well, I really picked a location where I worked with the governor to go to a location that would not cause undue impact. And it's a very fine line because you're all members of the community, you're all parents, you all want to see it better, but that's where then you get on committees and do committee work to get more, I'll say, in the trenches.
Well,
and I'm not trying to tell you what to do as a board. I'm just giving you information from NISBA on trainings of what they say to be careful, and probably Erie County School Boards does that too.
And along those lines too, Doug, I mean, I think it's very important for us as board members. I mean, anytime we're interacting with any staff, community members, et cetera, you need to make it very clear. Are you acting as a board member at this particular time, or are you being represented as a parent? And it's very important to make that distinction, because a whole lot of misinterpretation can happen, if you're trying to present yourself as both.
And what I find interesting in today's culture, and even around here, and I should say today's, what I see happening in the district, someone called Mary Jo today because they couldn't make it to a board meeting, and they said, I wanted to bring a complaint to the board. Well, it was something about one department in the high school, and it's a department you guys probably wouldn't guess, to be honest with you. And they said, well, my child couldn't do this. Well, they didn't go to the principal. They didn't go to the teacher. They did go to the teacher first, but they didn't, go up the ladder of different people. They'll say, well, just go to the board. We'll just go complain to the board. Or just call the board. And you saw that with other departments where emails were just coming in rather than contacting and going through it. And then the board has to say, no, go back, talk to administration. And then usually administration solves it to where the parents like it, knock on wood, a majority of the time. But then people equate that, well, the board got involved, so it got fixed. No, the board pushed the people back to the right spot to get it taken care of. And I love the roundtables. I would never get rid of them. But on the same token, I see people, we'll just save that for the roundtable and come in and tell the board, and then they can get fixed. But then when we have higher level discussions on it, you're like, well, yeah, that's one person saying that, and I got 10 people saying something else. So it's that's an interesting piece of where do you go to get the right work done.
So to go back to what I was saying, Jim and I had a conversation getting ready for our board meeting on Wednesday, and we talked a little bit about this meeting as well.
Go to the Word
And
document.
we agreed that we think that it would be good for our board to have some kind of a training, outside training come in. We haven't had that in probably 5 years. Heather and Bob, you guys have not had an outside training come into the district and sit with the board, right?
No.
So the last time was before you guys got on the board, which means Chuck and I are the only ones that are here that have had that experience, which means it's probably time. And I think that some of the conversations that are happening with our board goals is probably a good indicator that it is time for us to have another in-service board training. And it is really interesting. We spend a lot of money training our teachers, training our staff, training our administrators. Once in a while, we need to do something for ourselves. We did look into having NISBA come in and do a training session. It was a little pricier than I wanted to come to you guys and ask for. So we did go to the Erie County Association of School Boards, and their executive director agreed to do a training session with us that would not cost us anything. They will not charge us. So I did go ahead and ask to have that scheduled. I hope that's okay with everybody. I figured it was free. But that brought to mind something that Keith had suggested as one of our board goals, was maybe to think about putting into our calendar several work sessions throughout the year so that they're already scheduled for us, so that we don't have to try to come up with dates when everybody's available, and then that way it's on our calendars and we'd have better participation that way. So that's another thing that might be something that we want to look at as a board goal is, our own schedules and how we get ourselves to our meetings, maybe schedule some work sessions throughout, so like maybe every third month we have a work session kind of thing. I could see that going into, being one of our objectives for being an effective school board. It gives us that opportunity to be able to have meetings like this where we can have discussion and it's not necessarily a full meeting.
And one of the topics for the work session could be our second objective of monitoring the implementation of the strategic plan. Because we don't, a lot of the strategic plan says by 2027,
Yeah.
we're going to do this with the exception of the survey, which is a 2025 goal, and increasing the participation rate in the survey. But like, what's happening between now and 2027, right? Like year by year. And I don't think we really touched a lot, even in the district planning conference, about the strategic plan.
Well, I think, again, that would probably come under, what we had as one of our goals last year. One of the objectives is to monitor the implementation of the strategic plan. We just don't forget about it when we hit, a certain step, it's the continual monitoring of it.
And I think that's a good point, is what do you mean by monitor? Because I do in Friday memo, and I do in things, I give out information on it. So is that you monitoring it because you're updated on it? So to me, that is a monitoring thing. But is the board looking for a timeline? We're going to, with dates and times of when things are going to start. And also when the strategic plan was implemented, which gets to some of the other goals, are we still worried about that part of the strategic plan? Is it something else we're more worried about? So in this area of the fiscal concerns, under student experience, it talks a lot about clubs. I don't see the funds to add a lot of clubs in the upcoming budgets. So is that something we should say, well, as much as we like that, there's something else we should maybe implement and look at, which could be something with academics, which I know one of the other board members said, well, maybe we should be looking at more academics at different things and how they're doing in, after COVID on Regents exams, scores of Regents exams, to monitor that. So you're having reports come annually. I know we used to do that, but then the board said, well, when I say the board, remember, it's not you, I've been here over a decade. So it's one of the boards along the timeline said, no, we don't want those reports. We're looking more for these type of reports on progress of the goals, which the principals have been doing now at the district planning conference. So as it evolves and change, what you're looking for monitoring might evolve and change.
So what I'd like to propose is that we kind of stick to the wording of our goals, because these are really nice general goals, but then kind of do the changes that we want to see more in our objectives. So I like that our first goal is to support the superintendent in his accountability of implementing and achieving district goals and his superintendent goals. That is a good goal, and it fits the role of the board.
Yeah, and I think it's important because it aligns our goals with the district, and we all want to be singing off the same page here.
And where everyone might want to have conversation about what are the district goals, then maybe what our objective needs to be is to, form a small committee to
Well, that could be your work sessions throughout the year.
review our district goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be our work sessions, or form work sessions.
Yeah, I would prefer something like that because, I mean, over the course of the years, again, it's been the same thing. Maybe this is part of the struggle, but we always try to do the district goals, vision statements, our board goals during the summer planning conference. And it's always at the end of the conference, everybody's exhausted, and we all really want to, we need a break at that time. So I don't know that myself, that I was always in the right mental state when we were, formulating the goals. So I think it would probably, yield a much better outcome if we actually dedicated, some work sessions just to that, just like we're doing right now.
So where it says objective, one is continue the district planning conferences, I'd like to see it worded, continue the district planning conference and implement, and we can put in a number of work sessions during the school year.
I would also
2,
say maybe
3.
have a small committee under there to look at the design of the district planning conference,
Well,
because,
that's probably my next one.
oh, sorry.
All right.
I'm not reading your notes.
So, does that sound like a good idea? How many work sessions do we want to dedicate to district planning during the year? 2, 3, 4?
Do we need to come up with a number or just schedule a number of work sessions? I mean, if we have them on the calendar, it's always easier to, take them off if we don't need them.
I kind
rather
of
than
feel
add
like if we don't put a number down, if we do one, we'll just be like, oh, see, we did it. And we're not holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah, but I don't want to put 4 down there and, do, the old, Peter
Well, they can be
Fritz,
canceled though if
if
you
you
don't
give
need
me
them.
4 sessions, I'm gonna take 4 sessions to complete the job, and I could have done it in 1.
But I feel if we're gonna, go in this direction, I think we have to first also figure out what is our role as a board with the district goals and the superintendent goals. What are we gonna, what are we gonna do and how do we see our role in that? I mean, that's largely Doug's job. It's Chuck's point, just to sit around 4 times a year and just talk about them doesn't make any sense. We have to define I think our first thing is we have to define what our role is gonna be in this.
So traditionally how it's been done until the strategic plan is during the district planning conference, the first day was designed to present a bunch of information to the board about the type of results and everything that the administrators want to present and that the board wants to hear. So sometimes the administrators might want to tell you something you didn't ask for, but they feel it's important for you to know. And then sometimes you might ask for something that, they weren't planning on saying. And then there's things you line up perfectly, and there's been traditional what's happened and modified over the years based on feedback from the district planning conference. First day. Second day, that's where the goals are built in, because typically what would happen is then based on the conversations the first day, the administrators would come back and say, here are what based on your feedback, based on budgetary issues, here's what we think are the goals for the district and where we should be going. When we entered into the strategic plan, that kind of overrode that process of, here's our goals for the next 5 years of what we're working on. I think this, and I gotta be very careful how I say this, I think every strategic plan is excellent. However, being an instructional institution, I find it lacking on instruction. Point blank. There's nothing on instruction in there.
Well, and I think that was because when we first went into asking for strategic plan, the board at that time, well, that was like 3 years ago now, 4 years ago?
3 years.
3
I think
years
we
ago.
started.
Really
least,
felt
yeah,
like
Before.
we already had a good handle on where we were instructionally, and the issue at hand seemed to be communication. There were people who felt very strongly that our communication style with our community was not, was allowing for too much misinformation to be spread on social media, and truly wanted to control the social media. And so that, I think, put a bias into the strategic plan to begin with. I'm just gonna be blunt and say it. There was a bias going into it.
Yeah, I don't
We
know
were
if I
looking
would
for
call it a
specific
bias.
information.
It was definitely a focus. you know, on that. But I would agree with Doug. I mean, it does lack in, you know, instruction.
Yeah.
I mean, again, regardless of, you know, all of these other issues, communication, this and our primary function is to provide the education for our kids, and that really should be the core of everything.
And, you know, we did have one consultant come in here a while ago and worked with us, not the board, but with administrators and teachers and everything. And one comment he made is, what you keep your eye on, what you bring up gets attention. And if you're not talking about instruction, even though that's the most important thing, and our teachers do a fabulous, fabulous job here, I still think some things change on that. So they start working and spending and focusing on other things. We do have an assistant superintendent for curriculum. We have, I'll say it's the second, you know, if superintendent's the first position, assistant superintendent would be the second, dedicated to this, and it's not in a plan. So how much are you hearing about it now, and what are you hearing about it? And I'm not trying to take away from anything else, because social emotional is important. Communication is important, because how you communicate the scores, how you communicate how well a child's, how are you, you know, how is your child adapting to the changes in what's going on in school are important.
So, my perception of this has been for a long time now that we have our instructional pieces separate from the rest of the strategic plan. And that's evidenced just by the way we did our summer planning. The very first thing we heard about was instructional. It was about reading. The follow-up to that, there is a program that one of the people that was presented, you know, the material that was presented to us, one of the people in that material is actually the guest speaker at an event coming up in October. So I feel like we get our instructional piece, we just see it separate from our strategic plan, and that's probably not the best setup.
I don't think it is, because when I talked to the teachers on opening day, I went over our vision, mission, belief statements, and our strategic plan.
Yeah.
When you look at our website, strategic plan, vision, mission, beliefs. What's the message you're sending? What is your eye on? What are people think you're talking about? Even though we do talk about, even though I know the board finds it very interesting, it's just, what I'm trying to say is getting back to where we were. If you look at the district planning conference, for your second point that we haven't talked about yet, maybe someone looking at the design of it, and then having work sessions along, you know, throughout the year on points coming out of, at the district planning conference, we're going to have, if you say one a quarter, district planning conference being one, you have 3 more of points you decide on, this is what we're going to talk about. I know that we had a great presentation on the plight of transportation. We're looking to have, you know, a speaker come in to the public on it. Having a work session on that throughout the year might be good to keep us updated of where they are. I know we have reports, and there might be, again, when you have a work session, it's not just to have a work session, it's, yeah, we need more information on, or no, nothing's changed, we don't need one now, and they could be canceled, but they're scheduled. There's made time for in the calendar to have them happen.
And the beauty of the strategic plan too is that it is a living document, meaning that we can change it. It does not mean that we have to stick to exactly every letter for the next 5 years. So
Correct.
if we're, as a board now, different than the board 4 years ago when we first started talking about a strategic plan, and keep in mind too that it was done before and during COVID, that, yeah, times are different, and it might be time for us to take a look at that plan in general and say, we need to make some changes.
And I like, one thing in there I'll say, I don't like the wording of that you said. Another one, I like the wording you said of, I don't like the wording a different board, because I think every board is different.
Yeah.
Because of what you said exactly, depending on the time. It's
Yeah,
not that the board is different, it's the board has to be different to have a focus. All boards are good, just a different focus. Just to reword what you said a
honestly,
little bit.
we're one of the luckier boards, I think, in Western New York, because we always have continuity on the board. We never turn over more than 2 board members in any one particular year, and that makes a tremendous, you know, difference for a board.
But on the whole topic, the original gist of the strategic plan was how to take, Iroquois from where we are to even better.
Yep.
I don't think that it's an if or an or. We can do both. Like Chuck said, the only reason why we're here is because of instruction. We have to be excellent in that. In the other aspects, we have to be excellent as well. I think they all need their attention. I don't think it's what's in there, because we can always change that to what Jane said.
Right.
I think it's the way we approach it and the way we absorb the information.
Yep.
I think that it's very difficult when we, from our point of view, when we get too much down into Doug's job and the administrative's job. I think we need to, come back up to the 50,000 foot level and look at this at a bigger pace.
Yeah.
It's nothing wrong with saying, yes, Doug, you will make sure instruction is outstanding. You will make sure that they are supported emotionally, and, you will make sure that they have clubs or whatever it is. And Doug does it every single day anyways. I think we have to get back to that and that discussion. I think there are like big things, just not to Heather was very concerned about the bathroom, because she wants the students to be comfortable with the vaping or with bullying. I think we have to be able to deal with all of it. I don't think we need to start picking and choosing. I think it's a big mistake. We have to handle all of them. I think how we approach it is what's important, and understanding our role in that. What do we need from Doug, and what does the community need from us? And what should we be doing?
And I think that's the hardest part, finding that balance, because we're all here, we all love Iroquois. So you all here know things, and we want to help. We all want to help and make things better. But again, it's how do we do it, and how do we get the right thing, and what do we want to focus on at this time? Because I think education is a very unique business, if it's a business, because there's so much breadth to it compared to other industries. But in saying that, I want to be clear. I think the strategic plan, everything in it, it's very good. It's like I'm not trying to get rid of things. It's what can we do to have the board goals support the strategic plan, to support the district's goal, to support the district's vision in your role, in your role. Because like I have to be careful with my job. I don't want to get down in the buildings taking care of what the principals do. Like I got an email today, I could have answered. I didn't. I sent it to HR so they could answer it, and that's tough.
Well, again, and Jane, I'm not sure how much, the wording of a goal one would be, but I would include an objective under that. I mean, to be honest, we actually as a board should be reviewing that strategic plan every single year, because circumstances change every year. And while we, think that in a year from now, we're going to be in a position to achieve this particular phase of the strategic plan, something may have changed,
or it might not be needed.
Or again, it might not be needed. So I think it's important that we include something along those lines, that we do review it, and maybe a review and suggest appropriate changes. We don't want to operate in a vacuum, and we have, we all have our own individual views, so I don't want to change the strategic plan in a vacuum. We didn't create it in a vacuum, so we would have to come up, if we are suggesting a change, how are we going to implement that change, to make sure that our stakeholders still have, some involvement with that and, some ownership.
And thinking what you're saying there, how do you get the information for the change? Where does it come from? Which is, I would think, reports throughout the year. Could be work sessions where different departments or administrators come in and make presentation. And, I think in taking your objective, it might be something where objective would be to have a committee developed to review the strategic plan and how the board discusses it each year at the district planning conference. Or something like that with and the resulting thing, because I think there should be a result, is a recommendation from that committee to the board that they can either say, yes, we like it, or no, we don't. and then that can be implemented next year and see how it works. at
And
the
also
district
just to
planning
measure,
conference.
and that was my earlier point, just to measure where
Yeah.
we are with the existing goals that we're keeping,
Yep,
instead of just having it broad by 2027.
Right.
And I know we
Yeah.
talk about it a lot, and you provide us a lot of updates, but
but how do you, so you get an
just to make
update,
sure
well,
we're-
where are we in the whole plan with it?
Yeah.
So maybe
You're
there
right.
should be a
Exactly.
committee to decide what kind of, or the board as a whole, I mean, during the work session, you could decide, here's what we want for updates.
I'm thinking you could say there should be 2 work sessions, before, like, January, and then 2 work sessions after January to discuss these topics. I think that they're not something, sometimes they're easy, but to have them in the course of a normal board meeting, sometimes they deserve a little bit more back and forth, and you can't really do that. Because like Chuck said, if the board meetings are long to begin with, it's hard to give something that a justice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, if you're gonna just try to go through it, and I think that's the only, no one wants to meet more, also, it's fun. I think it has to get done on certain things.
But I guess in hearing you say that, what should be the agenda of the work session? Should it be a single item? That we're going to have a work session and we're going to focus on this? Because at the board, we have time to discuss as much as we want. It's just what time do you want to go home?
Right, I think it should be-
2:00 in the morning, or here's where we go through the updates and take actions to keep the district moving. Then we're going to have these work sessions and they're going to be on
I think
this topic.
Two topics at the most.
Yeah, and I'm not saying 1 or 2,
Because
I'm putting stuff out there for you guys to consider. They're your goals. These
So,
are your goals, let
I
me
mean,
be
I
clear,
think
not mine.
that's probably drilling it down too far. We want to make our objectives manageable, and I think that at the time, that we're sitting down to say, okay, we're coming up on a work session, at that point, we can say, do we want 1, 2, or 3 things that we're gonna discuss? It might be that there's one big issue that we feel, will take the entire time, where another time it might be that there's, this one's not as big a concern, this one, seems to be moving smoothly as it stands,
Yeah,
and we
I
just wanna
mean-
touch base with it,
But also remember, any work session administratively, the administrators have to prepare for it. So if you're saying, hey, we're having a work session in a month and we want to do this, and the administrators go, oh my God, I have all these things on my plate, how am I going to get this done? Where I'm not saying, no, we wouldn't do it, I'm saying we have to keep that in consideration, where if we kind of know, here are the work sessions themes we're having throughout the year, it could be something that's built on through the year. And if that's an impossibility, that's an impossibility, and the administrators will step up to the plate, no matter what. It's just something to consider with what's going on.
Yeah, and I think typically most work sessions that I've ever, seen and attended, it's usually 1 or 2 main issues, that are discussed, so, yeah, occasionally we might have something, but for the most part, those kinds of things that are, that's done during our regular, board meetings. But, I mean, while we have the latitude to develop board goals during a meeting, is that what we really want to do? It kind of takes the focus off of the rest of the meeting, whereas, and to some extent, it does a little bit of a disservice to some people who are viewing, whereas we did the work sessions, they certainly have access and can view all of our work sessions and hear all of the discussion, that goes on, instead of, maybe drawing a meeting out longer than it might need to be.
I guess we kind of somewhat agree that we should work in more work sessions, on, different topics. And I think what we're all kind of struggling with is that we can all kind of say that Iroquois, whatever you want, is a good district. We want to get to the next level.
Right.
And if that was easy, if there was a plan out there, everyone would do it. So
Right.
it's not. And within that is facing some things that are difficult, or things that, you got to look at, like, what are we not doing well? And that's never fun. So I think that's, Iroquois has been very successful for a very long time. It's okay, so now how do we get to the next level? So we can't do everything exactly the way we used to do it, because we're trying to go forward, and we got to develop this process. And like I said, the board meetings are business and they're great, but let's be honest, to Doug's point, if we were still here at 2:00 in the morning, I'm not sure how valuable any of our input would be at that point.
That's what I was saying, it was the same situation with doing it at the end of the planning conference, you know? It's,
Well-
where you're just exhausted.
So, I mean, I just propose that we do 2 work sessions before January and 2 work sessions after
Well,
January.
you know, if
Well,
we're,
that would be like one a quarter.
I mean, okay,
but would, you know,
I'm
would
not
we
saying it
want
has
to
to be one
set
a quarter, but
a work session or two, you know, shortly after the planning conference or even prior to the planning conference?
But remember,
in order
technically, the
to-
planning conference is a work session. So that may
True,
be
but
five. Well, no,
I'm
there's-
thinking,
well, just our wording needs to be
you
five.
know, so that we can develop our board goals, you know, in conjunction with the district goals and our administrative goals, so that we're ready then with our goals at the beginning of the year.
The problem that I see with that is that you're switching your board members possibly, because you'll have somebody leaving the board, somebody coming on the board, unless it's the same person who's reelected.
Well, and then
and
right
then-
after we do the summer, planning
I was
conference.
gonna say, and then, you know, we have a reorg meeting, and then if we start talking right after that, the administrators don't have time to prepare for the summer session. They're already starting to prepare.
Right,
for
well,
that
that's what I'm
in
saying,
May,
then
right?
do it after the summer planning conference.
Yeah,
Right.
Because that's, aren't the administrative goals still, developed then, or do you do it, prior to that, or?
They come in with what they, based on the district goals and where they were the year before, they come in with, here's what we've seen on our progress towards our goals. Here's how we've modified our goals. Here's what we've implemented and are moving forward. So you can see that constant work they're doing and moving forward. I think that's where, like I said, a committee to discuss what do you really want to see at the district planning conference might be a good thing to have at this time, or have a work session on it. Was the agenda this year. Did it work? Maybe the district planning conference should be one day, and then you should have a work session
That's a-
2 weeks later in
That's not a bad
August.
idea.
Well, we can discuss it whenever you want, but I definitely think there needs to be a change in the, format of the
Yeah.
planning conference. It's getting a little bit long in the tooth. I think it needs to be changed up a little bit,
And it
and,
feels-
you know, to make it more valuable, I think, to our
Right.
board members too.
yeah. It's starting to feel a little stale to me.
Yeah.
And also, like, this past year, we spent, even though we all love the topic, enough on electric buses, we spent a good chunk of time, a long time, where it's like,
And I guess
that could have been separate.
yeah.
Well, and I guess that's a great question, because it is for the board. That was definitely not the amount of time allocated towards him. But the board seemed interested, and it was like, and the board, well, okay, let's ask more, do you want to come back? Yep, they can come back after lunch. Okay, so do you want to hold people? This is your time slot, get it done this time slot, and if we want to have them come back, we invite them back.
I think that's the way you gotta do it.
And,
You
or
know,
I
But
think
that's again, for the committee, hey, what's the format we want,
The
rather than
format's gotta
trying to get our
change.
goals, try to plan the district planning conference now, try to figure out the work session, what are the, getting back to
Yeah,
task
but you
on
don't want,
hand.
personally, I don't want to have one individual or one group hijack, an entire conference. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're allotted this amount of time, you know ahead of time, prepare your information. If there's more information, be more than happy to reschedule, for one of, and have a presentation for our board and the community. But, I mean, we have an agenda for a reason, and it's to follow that agenda, and when we know it happens every year, when we go over someplace, and then we're trying to make up time someplace else,
Yep.
let's just try to follow the agenda as closely as possible and not let it get,
Yeah, and that's why,
totally.
we always ask, hey, does the
disregarded.
board want to hear more about this or not? And I can definitely, people know, me and Jane this year, well, whoever the president is next year would be, but we can say, hey, we're going to follow the agenda, we're going to follow the agenda. And that could actually would be a great objective. We're going to stick to the timelines on an agenda.
There you go.
There you go, there you go.
That would probably be under our strive to be a highly functioning
Strive to be
collaborative
on,
school board.
and
Correct.
that can be a score, that 100% of the meetings, we were on task for the agenda times.
But then, yeah, we have to be open then to reopen things at another work session now.
You have to be open
Yeah.
to that. And that's something that in the evaluation, where the board reflects on their evaluation, they can rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 4, I think it is in there, highly effective, effective, or so on. Did you hit it? Well, I think we were effective, which means you missed some of them. We were highly effective, we hit them all. We were developing, which means we didn't do it at all, and number 1 means, yeah, you guys talk too much.
Well, I think the this discussion is great, and like, I think we do need to have it, but where are we around goal 1 with it?
Again, I think that we should leave the bold print main goal worded the way it is, and we need to look at the objectives and look at how we want to word those. The first objective, continue the district planning conferences. I don't think anybody's saying we don't want to see that continue, but we want to see new life.
Why don't we put something like review the format of,
Have a committee review and make a
Form a
recommendation
committee.
to the board.
Yeah.
There it is, you see the product that can be monitored. Here's what we
you know,
got out there.
and I
By a
don't
certain
know,
date.
I don't know that I would consider it a board retreat. I look at it more as a district, retreat, because we have our entire administrative staff there, and we're all trying to move forward, one group, so.
Right.
I would want to see, our administrators to continue along the same lines that we have.
We can, but that would be,
cooperating with.
because it is a board work session, and through different policies, the board has, recommendations and say into it. That's where, what's done during it could be developed through committee members from the board and representatives of administration to what's happening.
Yeah, because I
And then
think
it could be completed by a
'cause they're
certain
so-
date and recommended back to the whole board of, yep, this is what we're looking for the next, so many years until it becomes nauseam.
Yeah,
We wanna
I
change it
think
again.
definitely there should be administrative input as far as,
Yeah.
that goes too. And I know we're separate for a lot of it, and, we'll continue that, I would say.
Yeah, it's like the objective, I would think, would be reformat the district planning conference through a committee with administration. They shall meet and have the proposal to the board by, and when do you want it by?
Yeah, yesterday, no.
Form a committee to review a committee of board members and administrators. Board members and administrators.
To review the district planning conference agenda
Format. You're getting too wordy now.
Okay.
Okay. Form a committee of board members and administrators to review the format of district planning conference. And report to the board by.
With recommendations.
With
by-
recommendations by, do we want to say,
July 1st.
because you need to be able to use this new format, say by March 15th?
Yeah, March 15th is,
They weren't measurable to me. Like, we couldn't measure the progress, like monitor the implementation of the strategic plan. Well, how are we doing that?
So
that's a great question. I always
that-
wondered that.
that actually came from, we had an attorney from one of our law firms come in and do a training retreat specifically on board goals. And it was through her recommendation that they were this vague. But I think that it's one of the reasons why we're having so many problems this year with
It's-
our board goals.
And if I remember right from that training, where you get caught up as a board is everyone has this idea of SMART goals. If you're on a board of a lot of committees, or sorry, not that'd be committees, if you're on boards of large organizations, they say they want to improve the profitability of the company. They don't say how, what, where, why. We just want to see better returns. We want to improve our footprint in Western New York. That's it.
And correct me,
It's not as measurable as when you start becoming directors and managers and things like that with SMART goals where you have percentages. That was her, I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm saying that was her
No,
presentation.
that's right, but there's still the measurement of that, whether the footprint was increased or not.
Right.
And then I would like, for the next ones, to monitor the implementation of the strategic plan and provide quality feedback to the superintendent. I mean, I think that would be used, like, within those workshops we're talking about, twice a year, the superintendent will update the board on district goals and superintendent goals and the strategic plan, they're all kind of one, and then we can provide feedback to them at that time.
So based on something that you said earlier, I wrote a new objective there. Rather than having it monitor the implementation of the strategic plan, I have review the strategic plan with stakeholder input. Would that look like another committee, maybe, a strategic plan?
I don't think it's gonna be a committee, I think it'd just be a work session.
Work
I think the problem with committees are,
But then how do you get the stakeholder input?
I think that has to be a discussion too. Love stakeholder input, always want it, but how are we getting the stakeholder input? Is it this large survey that's giving us information that we're not even using, and you're paying money for it, or do you want to do it a different way? I think,
I think that the stakeholder is from the survey, and I think that when, let's just, November 16th, I'm just making that up, you come to report to us at a work session, we can say, okay, 48% of the people felt this was bad. What have you done? Where are we on this?
well, we won't know where we are on it because I'll have to do another survey of the public to know
right,
where we
but you
are.
don't know what steps you've taken.
And that's it. So
Yes.
where we are, and I definitely gotta be clear of where are we on it is, here are the steps we've taken. Now, whether it's working or not, I don't know until the next survey
A
comes
good
out.
example, just because I'm right across from her, is that you could say, yes, the vape detectors are in all the bathrooms, they are active, and, we have caught
10 people
10 people, and,
in the first hour.
and I talked to the student cabinet, and they feel it's better. We could just,
Yeah.
I think the problem is, I think you go to such big, I don't use the word goals, but these big, huge ideas, and then you wait a whole calendar year, and you kind of come back and say, where are we? Where do we start?
I also think it's hard on the board because I'm living in it, and so I give you updates and Friday memos and at board sessions, but where's it all together for you?
Right.
Which is hard because you cannot remember, oh yeah, he updated us, let's use the middle school. Middle school has them all installed, they're doing the computer programming, reported, where they were in August, but now you got another update in the Friday memo, I think it was. Where were we? Unless it was that important one to you, because you might be focused on something else in the Friday memo, parent conferences or
Yeah,
something.
that part works well.
And you also have the difference of each board member. One board member might be really, focused on, are the vaping sensors in the bathroom and how's it going? Where another board member might have heard in the roundtable where the students said, why are you even bothering? I already know how to get around that.
Yeah.
So, each person's gonna have their own thing that they're focusing on. I'm gonna maybe skip over this part about vaping, and I'm gonna zero in on this part about, X, Y, and Z that I'm really super interested in, and that's what community members keep talking to me about. And so that's what I keep talking to the superintendent about and the rest of the board.
And that
members
comes back to this
So-
with your objectives, you need to talk to the principal about that, because we're focused on this.
But I think to the point, and Doug touched on a little bit, with, not necessarily SMART goals, but, and just to make it, vaping falls underneath that, do students feel comfortable?
Yep.
And
Right.
that is something we all need to be concerned about. You may be vaping, Bob may be, something else, but do they feel, safe
Yeah.
and secure and
Vaping,
comfortable?
bullying,
That's what we all should be concerned about.
Yeah.
And that should be addressed underneath that. I think it's getting the bigger umbrella goals.
And that's
that we
the
need to
student
specify.
experience. How are we
Yes.
doing our student experience, and what do administrators feel is the most important thing to address, and how are they doing addressing it?
But doesn't that fall under, all of that happens if we have our objective B, review of the strategic plan with stakeholder input? All that happens in there, because if we're reviewing that, we're gonna find out.
I think the stakeholder input is what's going to throw it askew, because that takes a long time and you get different views. I think with administrators is the point you want with that, because when we do the surveys, what they're implementing and what they're taking out of the surveys, or what they're getting from their PTOs, that's what the board, we want to have the student experience better. If we went back to the other one, that's the what, the how is what the administrators would tell you.
So wouldn't that fall under in goal 2, where we're talking about students, families, community members, and school staff in striving for continuous improvement of the district? Wouldn't we bring in an objective there that brings in getting that feedback from students about their experience?
Well, when we finish with 1, we may have to alter 2 at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying, like, some of what we're talking about might not actually belong here. It belongs down
Right.
in goal 2.
Or
where we're
goal 2
talking about-
becomes another goal altogether.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still think it comes down to the simple that it's gotta be done, I just use the word work sessions, where we get regular updates. To Chuck's point, we'll have to, what is regular? You know, I just threw out the 2 and 2, and then we can have the discussion, you know, during those, you know, if Doug's gonna update us on student experience and, scholastics in a work session, that's fine, and we'll spend an hour and a half discussing that stuff, and we'll know where we are. You know,
Yeah.
big picture, not exactly like, you know, the 3rd grade class in Wales all achieved 92. That's definitely the administrators and the teachers, but, you know, where are we overall? I think those are.
I think the second bullet's kind of easy to fix, because you say review the implementation of the strategic plan through building updates at each board meeting. So I wouldn't have all 6 or all 5 buildings come in. What I would do is, this month would be the high school, and they would take one of their goals and say how we've been working on it, because all their goals parallel the strategic plan.
but if there's paralleling the strategic plan, and our strategic plan doesn't include academics,
Then we need to fix the strategic plan.
so
Or add
should
to
that
it. I
be
shouldn't
one
say
of our-
fix, it means it's broken,
Should that be one of our
modify it.
objectives, not just review the implementation of the strategic plan, but
Evaluate it?
reevaluate specific components?
I think there should be, to the new board members, I think there should be an evaluation of a work session dedicated to evaluating the strategic plan. And do we want to keep its entirety, or do we want to switch it? And I keep coming back to the survey. Do you keep the survey the way it is, or do you do something different? Now, in saying that, you have to be very careful, because you want something that's vetted. You want something that's going to do it. So you might end up with the same, you might end up at exactly the same point, but when it says 85% of the respondents will say communication is better. Well, all the people getting terrible communication are not going to answer the strategic plan because they didn't hear about it. Or the people who are the most disgruntled are going to answer on it.
I don't think that's getting into the weeds, and I don't think as the board, we do that. I think, you know, you get the pleasure of doing that. I think, like, is goal 2 something, after you fix goal 1, is that the board will, you know, make sure that the strategic plan aligns with the district goals. Will we as the board take a bigger crack on that one? And then it feeds right back into 1.
Well, the strategic plan is the, there's the district vision, district mission, and then the goals are the strategic plan for the district.
But we've said a couple times that it doesn't mention, you know, academics in it. So as I say, we can, to your point, one of our goals can be to go and fix that and align that.
Yeah.
And then it feeds right back into 1.
So that'd be a great one, objective to support the superintendent in aligning the strategic plan with the primary mission of the Iroquois district by,
Yeah,
and I would say, you know, October, November, 7:30. I would say by either April or May, because I'm just thinking of budget season, where we are, holidays, and that way it's prepared for the end of the year, for the,
Why not by the end of February?
could be by the end of February. I'm just thinking you're gonna have October, November, December, and you're gonna have four board meetings in there, 4 months. possibly 2 work sessions to work on it. I was trying to get the right time amount.
I think,
I mean, you pick the date, we'll hit it.
I just, well, that's a discussion the board.
Don't say
has.
tomorrow.
That's a discussion we have to have as a board, and I don't think we're going to, but obviously we found out that the strategic plan totally doesn't align with anything we want to do. That's a bigger
Yeah.
problem by itself.
Yeah, we could have it by the end of
I
February
think
for
by
the
then February
March
gives
meeting.
it gives us time to start doing something with it, because once you get into spring and May, it gets kind of crazy.
I don't know what I said.
Support the superintendent in aligning the strategic plan with the district goals,
District vision.
district
Not
vision,
vision, with the district,
mission,
Mission.
primary mission yeah,
the
mission.
district's primary
Yeah.
mission.
Core mission,
core mission, I like that.
core mission.
That's good.
Because I don't want to confuse with our vision and our mission or anything. It's our core.
Mission.
We're a school.
Our
we're
core
school.
purpose,
We're educated.
Core purpose, yeah.
with our core purpose.
We'll wordsmith that one, put that one in, purpose, put purpose and like italicize it, and we'll wordsmith that to get one. You got an idea, you got your hand up. Okay,
Okay, so it's support the superintendent in aligning the strategic plan with
our
the
core directive,
with the district's core,
We can leave purpose for now.
Yeah, just
Purpose
for now.
You can
Yeah,
wordsmith.
and you said
yeah.
by the end of, because then I
by the end of
was,
February.
by the end of
I'm good with
February?
February, yeah.
Like that, okay?
And see, now I can take that, I'll probably work with you and Jim, because I think I should modify some of the goals I have
Okay.
to align with these, because
Yeah.
you see how these are coming up, and then we can
Yeah.
get into alignment.
And healthy organizations change their plan as things change around them. And, some things that were, like you said, were really important yesterday may not be as important today.
Great.
To provide quality feedback to the superintendent in a timely manner.
I remember why that was put in there.
People hear things from the public and not tell the superintendent.
No.
And I go, what?
It was to make sure that we as a board were, conforming to the, obligations of the contract of the superintendent.
Yeah. Well, and the core-
And
the
what
core-
had happened was because, there was a mid-year review that was kind of, lackadaisical, and we wanted to make sure that, we were giving Doug, feedback in a time, not waiting until, the end of the year and then giving him feedback, to give him
Saying, hey.
that feedback throughout, so that.
We noticed in January that you weren't doing this, but we didn't say anything so we could hammer you at the end of the
You're
year.
right, exactly, yeah.
And I think, but
Yeah, pretty much, everything got, so it was like, no, he deserves, he needs to know.
And I think this is an extremely important one, and I don't think that we do, maybe the best job at it. I don't know when we've had a discussion with Doug for a half hour over feedback. I haven't been around as long as.
No,
some of
but
you guys have.
that's where the you guys have a discussion, and then the president and vice president meet me. That's what it says actually in my agreement, that you guys have the discussion, and then the
But
president
we
and
need
vice
to have that
president.
discussion in order for the vice president and president to have the discussion with you.
Yeah.
Without the discussion, it doesn't work.
Is that
So
ongoing?
really,
Like the feedback's ongoing whenever you meet, or is it like,
So, I mean,
how does it work?
so I think the objective should be, which would be measurable, have a meeting, and we'll put winter in parentheses, there's a specific months, have an executive session in month dedicated to the mid-year review, have an executive session month dedicated to the end of the year review of the
Yes.
superintendent.
Yes, that has to happen that way, or it's.
I do remember putting things in my calendar last year. Don't forget, you've got to do this
Yep.
by, and then I sent out an email, but it still didn't actually.
And I sent a letter to the board to,
And and especially like, it's, everybody's busy and, those, unfortunately, some of that stuff, you doesn't get prioritized
Yep.
to the level that it should,
Right.
and I mean,
We,
to me, that's one of the most important, things. If we don't provide quality feedback to Doug or whoever's the superintendent, of Iroquois, they cannot do a better job for progress.
we can't get to the next level, and I think it's something we have to do as a board. We are saying, Doug, you're responsible for a $57 million budget and to educate our future. We should be able to get feedback on that
Right.
at least twice a year, because those are big things.
Right.
And then for Doug to, operate effectively, he needs to really know what we think and we feel.
And we do have, super eval to help
Yeah,
us with that.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is where we got that next objective to gain proficiency, because the first year that we had it, that kind of went a little haywire. I felt that went better this past year. It does seem a little confusing to me still that we have board members who come onto the board who don't have access to that information. That was one of the issues. This year, we have 2 new board members. They don't have access to the information from last year because they weren't on the board last year. That might be another discussion that we have to have, because I remember vaguely that the board at the time when we signed up for it had that discussion and decided not to give access to people that weren't on the board at that time. That, to me, now in practice doesn't make sense.
Well, I agree with you, they should have access to it, but here's the bigger thing with that, and not to pick on you, do you really know how to use super eval?
No, not yet.
And here's the thing, when I was learning myself on it, there's sometimes that you want to throw the computer across the room. Once you get into it, it's kind of fine, but it's not
You gotta do
naturally
There's
intuitive.
a couple nuances that, that you learn when you go through it, but speaking of the gaining proficient, we're talking about, Doug's evaluation and tying that in. I almost feel like that I should be accessing super eval
Once a month.
more than twice a year. Whether it's for the superintendent or for the board. It definitely should be a minimum of once a month, I would think, just for a review, even if nothing was added. But I guess, again, it might be the boat that Heather is in, not knowing enough about super eval, and as far as artifacts and, things like that.
And that's hard, because if I
for
haven't
documentation.
put things in, or I'm saving things to put them in, you're not going to see those in me, so going in every month for me, you might be like, nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing,
Right.
nothing,
Right.
because honestly, I expect you to be getting a lot of the artifacts, Friday messages, board meetings, things like that.
Yeah, but I guess the question is then, how does that stuff get added into super eval? While we may have,
Yeah, well, it depends. I could
our
say,
agendas
see the
and
Friday
stuff on
memos,
board
here's an
docs
example. Here's a Friday, see the Friday memos for conversations on this, then you have to go back and look at the Friday memos. Or, do you want me to send the Friday memo and put it in board docs?
Well, my point is that how
Or
do we
put the Friday memos in board docs, period.
support, just because Heather, in making sure she knows how to use it? We
Now-
give her a computer and a passcode and say, have fun. And it's just, in other words, we would never, if we think about this, what super eval is for us. Doug, you're an educator. You would
Yeah.
never you would never let children know only twice a year how they're doing. There's quiz, there's tests, and that's kind of what super eval is for us. So I think either we need to
Exactly. That's
embrace it
kinda what I was
or get
getting
rid
at.
of it. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think we should get rid of it. I'm
Yeah,
saying
no, but that's kind of what I was getting at, to really utilize it as a tool, because, I could still do everything that we're currently doing in super eval on a piece of paper at no cost.
So maybe SuperVale's not really what you want to use.
Or, again, we need to be better educated
Yeah.
in it and utilize, I know, we're not even coming close to utilizing.
But I could put,
No.
simple things, I could put Friday messages in SuperEval, I could put the updates in SuperEval, but then you have to go to SuperEval and look at it.
Yeah. right.
But that kind of hits the thing. You have to go to super eval, which is sort of what we're saying. We need to start, if we're going to pay for this program, why are we only going into it once or twice a year?
Honestly, that's what it's designed for.
Learn how to use it. Learn how to use it.
I feel guilty.
That's how
We
it's
should-
designed.
That's really how it's designed.
It is.
It was supposed to be a tool for us to do a better job.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I can't say that that has done anything for me.
What it's designed to do is really go in there a couple times a year and then reflect back on, like, well, let's use the board portion of it and say, here are our goals in there. How do I think we did on it? And you rate it 1 to 4.
I think our objective should be to, review the effectiveness of, or the effectiveness and functionality.
Yeah. Now, I would still want to keep it for the principals, because I go and have discussion on once a month, but my discussions are, what have you done this month? Have you put the artifact in? And we discuss what artifact they put in,
And I think that's,
which is different than what you would do with me.
but I think that's huge because we've all evaluated ourselves as a board. Have we ever discussed that as a board, what we said about ourselves?
No, because you're supposed to be discussing that, which you saw in super eval, as you're making the goal, as you're making your objectives
Well, we have-
that you want to do better.
Right, that's
We have the
exactly right.
superintendent side and we have the board side, and we usually do that in the summer
Yes,
session, and we,
so I mean, you could take
Yeah,
these
outside.
goals, put 1 through 4 under them, and then everyone shows up with their rating sheet and you talk about it and say, whoa, we all hit 4s on this, do we want to keep it, or do we want to get rid of this goal, or do we want to modify it?
Well, yeah, that's what Chuck was saying. How do we use this?
Yeah,
To our-
because
to our
these are all put in super eval, and then you go into super eval and rate yourself on these.
Yeah, but like right now, because I haven't logged into Super Eval in a while, thanks for the reminder, Doug, or Doug, Chuck. So, under your goals, like say something's in my head right now that I want to give you feedback on, so at the end of the year, I remembered it and it's documented. I think we have to set the goals to, right now, the
Next year.
status is pending for him.
Yeah, if you want to look at me to do something for me, I
Well,
have to
just
put
for
my
me to-
goals in and send them up.
Yeah, but for me, and I even do this in the work world where you're getting evaluated once a year, you want to kind of keep notes along the way. Because
Right.
after 12 months, it's going to be like, well, how did Doug do again this year? You want to be able to use the tool to keep copious notes throughout the year. I'm just saying, right now in our current setup, the goals are still set to pending. So if that's changed to like
The board
Doug's
goals
goals,
or my
Doug's
goals?
Yours goals.
Yeah, my goals do not move up until I put the goals in and say, all right, moving up to the next level, where then, you say, yep, these are ones you agreed. And then even at that point, then, I'm putting my artifacts in before you review it. So until I'm happy with my artifacts,
Yeah.
it doesn't go to you.
So we need to review,
yeah.
Does that make sense?
yeah, kind
I'm
of.
not saying
but-
it's right, I'm
yeah.
saying, did I explain it well?
Yeah.
Where I look at it, I say, really, if I want to say, hey, here's what I've done, or here's what the district has done, because I feel what I'm doing is really what the district is doing.
Yeah.
Those are the reports you get at board meetings. And so if you're not liking the reports, or you want more information on a certain topic, that's where you would email Jane and say, I would like some more discussion on X, Y, or Z. And then it's added to the agenda. And then the whole board gets it, and, that's really that's the best way to function with it, which then gets to the question, is that meeting the goal that you want it to meet? Because really that should be a reminder, the artifacts in there should be reminders of what you've had all year. You should look at, oh yeah, I remember the Friday memos, or what Friday memos? Oh yeah. Or, oh yeah, the report on,
Well, that's the thing,
budget,
While I think all of the board members, review all of the information given us throughout the year, and, we do try to file it away in our gray matter. When we get to super eval, and, it's tough to recall all of those things, so if we don't have an artifact.
And that's why the
or a
artifacts are there to try to help you
or
remember
something, from you, it does make it hard.
And that's where board docs is where you have a spot in board docs to take your continually notes in board docs. Can Friday memos be put in board docs? Because now you would have all your notes in one spot. Because really, board docs is where the board should be functioning, keeping notes, looking at agendas, bringing up, oh, I want to talk about this at the next board meeting, making notes. So I think really, in hearing what everyone's saying, under goal 1, that last objective should be taken out. We should move something down to goal 3, where it reviews the board eval, super eval, and board docs, and determine how it wants to function as a board in taking notes. And I think therefore should be trainings in all of those, again, in order to have them, so you can make a good decision.
Yeah, I agree with Doug, I would move that down to,
Take that one out, there's
Copy
already
and
one down.
paste it down to
There's
goal
already one
3.
down.
Down to
because
Yeah.
I think goal
Just
3,
cut it.
when we get,
Or just hit the backspace.
we should definitely get Nora a mouse.
She's not getting a mouse.
Because I think when we get to goal 3, I think goal 3 should heavily surround like board training.
Yeah, and I think that's really where it is, and then from there, you can make a decision. She goes all the way down to goal 3, you'll see one down there.
Yeah, it's to gain proficiency in board eval.
Yeah.
So it would be super eval / board eval.
It's all the same.
And it's not
all the
gaining
same.
proficiency
It's all
anymore,
right.
now it's reviewing
I would
the
say review and
effectiveness.
evaluate, board eval, super eval, and board docs, after appropriate training to determine how the board, wants to conduct business. I don't,
To
give her a second, Jane wrote it.
use board eval,
Review
super,
and evaluate board eval, super eval, and board docs to determine, and that's where I lost what you were
To
saying.
determine, the efficiency of each program and the direction the board wishes to continue.
I don't like the end of that.
To continue the efficiency
Determine
of
the
each program.
efficiency,
Each program, the board
And a-
shall, make a selection by such a date to have finished all its training and evaluation.
Was
Such
by
a
the end
date,
of school year?
to complete its training and evaluation, I guess.
Should be,
Kind of losing it there at the end of what's good. Help me out. Looking at you, Heathers.
Say after, so review and evaluate to gain proficiency in board eval, board docs, and super eval to determine efficiency of each program after appropriate board training.
Oh, after appropriate board training, yep.
Then the board will decide,
Which programs to continue?
please,
Where do you sign up for the inappropriate training?
Tuesday.
7:30.
The board will decide which programs to continue with by such and stuff. Last sentence. The board will decide which programs to continue by, and then you pick your date.
Probably when the contracts are up.
And does the board docs also include policies? Because
Yes.
we don't have any information
a
about there.
policy
about
service, you mean, or policies?
Our policies for the district, not the
Policy
service.
of the district are on board.
Yeah, they're on.
Okay, so
they're on
can we
board
actually
docs.
put comma policies as well, including policies or something along those
So,
lines?
I almost wonder, like, you're starting to talk about policies. I know several boards right now, that are completely reviewing every policy they have. When was the last time we did that, and is that something
So-
this board wants to tackle?
When and why you do that, we did that 2007 and 8 because they had not been done in years. They
Okay,
had not been updated, they had not been reviewed, we actually bought in at that point into the.
when you
into
say
the-
bought it, you mean
Bought into
Chuck
the
BOCES.
Erie One Policy Services.
Okay,
So by going into Erie One Policy Services and then going through each policy is either or modified. Now, from that point on, anytime there's a proposed change in legal or SED or culturally, Erie One has its lawyers review it and say, here's something that's happening, this policy should be reviewed, and we've been religiously keeping up to date on those.
So we wouldn't need to do.
So I don't think we would need to do a wholesale change like that. The board might want to develop a policy committee that reviews the policies that come from Erie One, because typically what happens now is they come from Erie One, which has the legal thing. I go through them, I look at them to say, okay, is there anything nuances for Iroquois we have to take into account? And then they go to the board, and that's what the board does for the 3 readings, is review them. Which is why it was decided before not to have a committee, because the board is reviewing them at the meetings and then bringing up, I forget which one, last year there were a couple where they did the first reading, and they said, well, we'd like this change. We changed it for the second reading, and people said, yep, I like it better. There might have been one that changed for the third reading, and then it was adopted after that.
Okay, what I heard in that, though, is that we are relying on our superintendent to determine which ones go onto our agenda.
No,
No?
all of them make it to you. I
All
just
of them.
review them
Okay.
first. They
All
all
right.
come to you. I just look at them because if it says,
All right, I misunderstood. Got it.
Yeah, because there are policies.
Right.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything.
I don't determine which ones, you get them all, but
Okay.
it might be
All right.
like, something with transportation and all cars will be looked at this way. Well, we don't have cars, we have minivans, so I'll reword it to minivans. Or, I don't like the word cars, I'll
Got
reword
it.
it to
All right, I understand now.
automobiles.
I understand now.
Vehicles.
Got it.
I guess maybe I meant, maybe not reviewing it line by line, because how many pages are there? Thousands?
Thousands,
Oh, my God.
plural.
So,
No, it's-
because at the delegate assembly meeting, one of the school districts did say, well, we're reviewing all our policies. I
All
forget
of them.
which
I
district.
was like,
Yeah.
oh,
But
please
maybe
tell me
we
don't
should
need to.
refer to our policies more often when we're making decisions, maybe.
Yes, so the policies are in there, yeah.
In addition to maybe during our agenda meetings, I mean, because approving the policies that get adjusted for he, she,
Yeah,
all the,
some of them are
you
those.
know, updates like that for gender, we
Yeah.
don't really ever talk about them. And maybe just highlighting them more during the agenda meeting to say, oh, by the way, this is a policy about
Yeah.
X,
During
Y, and Z, and
No, but there's only
Or
two
not-
people at the agenda meeting.
not the
You mean
agenda
board
meeting, the
She
board
means the
meeting.
board
Okay,
meeting.
the board
Okay.
meeting. And maybe just touch on taking a peek
And that's
at
during
them more.
discussion.
So-
That-
Yeah.
Bring them up
I
during
mean,
discussion.
You know, in the past, I know we've had discussions over,
Oh, yeah.
particular policies, that came from, BOCES and made changes during, board meeting. So, I mean, it's like, when, it's that discussion point when the policies are brought up,
Right.
let's discuss it.
And
you have
I think
something to
that
say.
touches on something for me more, is not so much that we need to discuss the policy. If you have a question on anything that's in the consensus agenda, I don't think that we as a board do a lot of discussion on that stuff. And as the president running the meeting, I just assume that if you don't say, hey, I do want to talk about this policy, that means you've read through it, you get it, you understand it, and you don't have a problem with it,
That's
Well,
exactly
and
the way it should be.
See, and I take that as a compliment if people aren't asking questions, because
Right.
you're getting the information you need.
Right.
Because I know you guys are not rubber stamps, that's
So,
guaranteed.
I don't want to turn around now and say, well, now we have to add some kind of discussion on the policies, just to make sure that everybody didn't have any questions. I think that speaks more to, if there is a question that you have, if there's some reason why somebody isn't bringing up a question for discussion, let's talk about that and find out why we're not comfortable having a discussion. Not so much like, let's zero in on one particular area, but, like, if there's a question, bring it up, have the discussion. It doesn't have to be listed on the agenda under board discussion in order for you to say, I have a question, let's discuss
And I
that.
think we have. I remember personally asking a few questions on a few policies just to, to understand the wording of it, to make sure it's what I thought it was or something totally different. I think the last one I remember was, the reviewing of material in the library. Jimmy and Doug explaining exactly what that, what that meant. So, I mean, I think it does happen, but I think it's, you know, because I'll get the agenda and I'll make, like, notes, like, yeah, it makes sense. I don't totally know what this is, and then either I'll ask Doug or I'll bring it up at a meeting.
But like as
That's how I-
questions,
And one of the things that does make it kind of hard, you know, with policy, I shouldn't say it doesn't make it hard, it's just more time consuming, is when you get a policy that's being changed, you know, primarily just for pronouns. You know, so you're reading through the whole thing to, you know, see if there's anything really, you know, else,
That's there, yeah.
you know, with meat in it that is being changed. You know, I'm not saying that changing pronouns isn't, that's absolutely.
No, that's important to do, but you're looking, that's an easy
But,
lift, because you
yeah,
know
you know,
that
like
has to
maybe a
change.
note, you know, this policy is being updated only for the purpose of, you know, pronouns or, you know.
Yep.
Have that be a statement that's actually in the agenda with it?
Well, that's in the backup documentation
Yeah.
that comes
Yeah.
out.
I suppose, you know, I mean, to do my due diligence as a board member, I need to review them all anyway. But I guess I'm just selfishly looking to try to save myself a little time.
Well, you always have to, yeah, I mean, no excuse is acceptable, but there's always, some people focus on one area and some people like a different area. And I know the board said that we kind of rely on people because it's a lot of material to look through, and you can't get through all of it always. But I know all of you try to always.
Honestly.
I don't know how we got where we are now, but I think goal one is kind of done, and I don't want to say it is done.
I would say I think goal 1 is done. I would stay on goal 3, because I think it's simpler.
Okay, stay
and
on
then jump
goal.
back to goal.
We don't have dates in by mid-year by.
I have to look at the contract, they're in the contract.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, you don't get to pick those.
Because
No, that was the reason to make sure that, you know, emphasize, let's get this
They're in the
done.
contract.
in a
Now, they can
timely
change,
manner.
I'm not beholden to any of them, I'm just saying,
No,
I don't even know what they are. I literally have a thing on my calendar, it pops up and says, remind the board at this time.
That's what I was just looking at, to see if I have it for this year.
Yeah,
We'll have it, we
need
don't need to waste
stick
time right
Okay.
now.
the
All
dates.
right.
And I was just gonna say, I think that goal 3, because I think we have to go back into goal 2, but I think goal
Yep.
3, generally, I like the way goal 3 is written. I just believe that we really need to do it
You
this
just
year.
have to hit save, Nora.
I believe that meeting with an outside consultant is extremely important, and developing ourselves further as a board is also extremely important. I think so everyone has this, so everyone on the board has the same understanding of what our role is. I think it's extremely valuable.
That's important.
And I think that, so I just would like to keep 3 the way it is, just make sure we do that, so we understand our oversight role. I think it's very easy for us to cross our role with Doug's role, and that is not healthy, good, and won't get us to where we need to go to.
You do not want to do that.
But I think
Be more happy you're coming out.
but I think it's natural, and I think it comes, for a lot of times, it
Comes from caring.
from a good place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it won't work.
It doesn't.
So I think that number 3, I mean, I'd keep it the way it is and just make sure we do get some training on oversight and meet with an outside consultant just to have this discussion with.
And I would say the second one, so the first one I think is good because it has a number unless you want to increase the number, but the second one, you should have a deadline with that
Yes.
by something.
Tomorrow.
By by the 23rd. When, did we get feedback from Dave yet, or Nora, when he can, so I would say, what month is this, September?
I would think we would
By
probably
November
want to do it
1st.
as soon as possible.
Yes.
Be able to do by
You know,
As reasonably possible,
He won't
yes.
be able to do by January 1st.
Okay, January 1st.
Can we do it November?
I threw out November 1st, but
I would throw out November, and if Dave can't do it, Dave can't do it, or whoever we have, but that, we can always change.
before the snow.
Because then
Gotta
Doug has
ski.
to operate the high lift to move the snow.
I know, it's fun. Don't worry, we get Bob in here this year.
How about by the end of the second quarter?
Second marking period?
Second
I
marking
can
period,
look at
second
that.
quarter.
That'd be the end of January.
Oh,
Second
no.
marking period ends at the
No.
end of January.
How about before Christmas break?
Before Christmas break?
Yeah, just prior, just.
Prior to
so-
Christmas
So,
vacation,
Prior to
so we,
Christmas break.
winter break?
we
Yeah.
would say,
Winter
you
break,
know,
sorry.
yeah, by December 20th, I would say. That's why it's a date,
Okay.
Okay.
because there's no way it's happened that
We
week
did
right before.
earlier, and I don't know if this was before Jim got here or after, but I wrote down under goal 3, objective, stick to agenda, stay on task, and be open to.
Oh,
and then-
yes, that was one of the ones, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes,
you want to keep it, but really, we did come up
We
with
could,
one more
we
objective.
could add, yes.
Yeah,
that's fine.
add one more,
Goal 3
Goal
after the
3.
last, end of it.
it'll be the 4th objective.
The Board of Education shall adhere to set times on all agendas.
You'd have to say.
to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
No, period.
Well, no, because something could happen that is
We gotta have a little
extremely important,
flexibility.
You know,
Unless circumstances require a
Yes.
deviation.
yes.
Okay.
And then I guess the question is there just for feedback for me and the president and vice president for the agendas, for the board agendas, like under superintendent's report, do you want time allotments for each subject that I'm speaking? Or is just for like work sessions and things like that?
I would not do it.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
saying we
don't
should,
know.
but let's be clear about the intention
Yeah,
of
the
this.
agendas, I don't know that we would really want to put any times on our board meeting.
So we should
agenda.
modify all agendas here.
You know, again,
Because that's
because
an
that
agenda.
goes to the transparency, you know,
Yeah.
and we don't want to cut any discussion short. You know, I would think it would be more for our work sessions.
Work session
and our
agendas.
planning conference,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yeah, we just put work session agendas, that should take care of it, because
Yeah.
it's either a board meeting or a work session.
Yeah.
Those are your options.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
because-
true, yeah,
because
it's
you-
gotta be one of the two.
Yeah, to Chuck's point, you wouldn't want something that was somewhat, that people were interested in or thought important. It's like, okay, time's up, we're
Yeah,
done.
No,
Yeah,
no,
but if we left all agendas there, we
No, I
failed
agree, it's a
already.
good call.
yeah, no,
We're
see
done,
that.
you failed.
yeah, that's one that you
Okay.
definitely don't wanna put any time on.
While we're there, for highly functioning board and attending development programs, I remember last year, and they just came through a little while ago, maybe a little longer than I think. NISBA has that thing, you should have all got an email that talked about policies and the advocacy of at the meeting of who the delegate is going to be voting. That's at the end of October. Last year, there were a couple the board representative who went to it said they felt uncomfortable going there without, as a whole board, discussing them. Would you want a work session on that, or would you want that done at the next board meeting? And that would be the October board meeting before it happens.
The October board meeting is after the vote, because the vote is on the
Yeah,
16th.
it's prior to
It would,
NISBA.
it would have to be at our September
virtual.
meeting.
So
It's
would you want
actually
that at the
something
September meeting?
I was gonna bring up in our,
Sorry,
our
I-
meeting 2 days from now, yeah. And if you add that to the goals here,
I'm not looking
It's
at the
not-
goals, I'm just
okay.
saying,
That we should discuss.
now that we
it,
have these
should a
goals,
work session to
look
discuss.
set, we either need to schedule, and we have the work session set up here, and they're long.
yeah.
A work session, just
I know.
discuss on those, or what would the board like to do with that?
I think that that's one of those things that we should have paid more attention to our representative last year and added that to our agenda, or, our work session agenda for the summer. It's
I don't-
not
were they
out by
out?
then.
It's not out.
by then, but we should have had a plan for that.
Yeah,
We
you're right.
didn't. We missed that this year. I think we can probably spend a little bit of time during our board discussion on Wednesday talking about them so that our voting representative knows what to do this year. But it's lengthy, and I know that there are
It's
other
very
boards
lengthy.
that have a work session that is nothing but reviewing those goals. There's also talk about having ECASB next year is talking about creating an event where we literally, just anybody who wants to can go and talk about where ECSB members are with that, and that could also,
You know, we had done that in the past, with the CASB, and, we had a situation where some of the resolutions, you know, there was quite a division, you know, because they just,
Yeah.
they weren't
There's gonna
applicable
be.
across
Right.
all, you know, school districts.
Sure.
You know, so, you know, that might be a little difficult to be able to come up with some kind of consensus on that stuff.
but I think that those come out in, like mid-August, if I'm not mistaken. So anything that we would want to do, include in our calendar for next year would be a work session. I hate to say this, but it sounds like we keep saying work session, work session, work session. I'm wondering if, as a board, we should be looking at adding a work session to each month.
There are quite a number of,
Boards that work that way.
districts that have
I think
a
what we do is we
monthly work
stick with what we
session
have here as
and
the
a,
goal and see if we need
in
to
a
add
board
them.
meeting.
Yeah, I'd say look at what we have and see if we need to add
Yeah.
one. But then their board meetings are very short, because all the work is done at other
Yeah,
times.
and I don't wanna get away from, you know,
See, and that's,
our discussion.
we have longer
because
board
that's
meetings.
where, you know, that's where most of our, you know, community finds out about, you know, what's going on with the
Yeah.
board, not listening to a work session. The work session is more for us to try to hash out amongst ourselves,
Right.
you know.
I say you
Yeah.
stick with the goal, and if we need to add more, then you modify the goal the following year, but this is one that could be added in there.
Okay.
So what do you want to, I mean, what do you want to do with that? Just because it's coming up and there'd been no conversation on it.
I think that we need to challenge ourselves to do some reading, and if there's something in particular that we object to, to let Jim know at our next board meeting. And I know it's a lot to do, because our next board
There's a
meeting's in
lot
2 days, and there's a lot of them, but if you can at least skim through, so we can have at least a 10 or 15-minute
Yeah.
conversation, so our voting delegate has some idea of, you know, where our district stands.
And I'll get Nora, because I have them, they're just on my computer to send out.
I'm pretty
That thing
sure.
again.
I'm-
You have 'em all
I'm pretty
already, but
sure that
send it
they
out
just
again.
came to us in the email from Robert Schneider on Sunday. There's a link to them.
Yeah, Grasso sent them too.
Sure.
Yeah, send it to Nora, because then we can also put in there just a note for everyone from her. Please review these and come up with the ones you object to, correct?
Yeah.
That
Or
probably
one you
be
have a strong opinion on, maybe, like, you know,
Objections or strong opinion.
yeah. So that, you know, we can all be on the same page, and then our voting delegate can.
Jim, I think Sharon was our person last year. And
Yes.
she did say that the meeting did last several hours.
It was long.
It is
So-
long.
It was
I
like-
was the
I think she,
rep a few years, and it's very long. And we used to do it at the very end of the conference, and everybody would be going home, and you'd be there for the rest of the
It's
day.
like a 10/16, it's on October 16th.
October 16th at 4 o'clock. Yep.
be prepared, it might go until 9, 10.
Which wouldn't be bad, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's virtual, so
Yeah.
it's, you know.
Yeah.
All right, sorry to bring that up right now, but I thought there was something important with the
No, that
two
wasn't
things we did, it'd be timely to look
But
at.
it is definitely something that we should,
But we schedule in our work sessions, then we can just say, here's one dedicated to it.
yeah,
You know, September such and such.
right. All right, so that brings us then, we're zeroing into the middle, goal 2. And again, keep the bold-faced writing, actively engage our students, families, community members, and school staff in striving for the continuous improvement of the district. I don't think that needs to.
Can you go up to number 1 so I can see what was up there? Just, Okay, I just want to see what was up there for the strategic plan, because that's down here too.
I don't think that that's, the bold face writing is what needs to change. It's the objectives again.
Well, I think the first one, I don't know if that really needs to be there.
No, you
That
have it
was
up at
easy.
number 1.
Yep.
Yeah. Or I shouldn't say yes, you guys say that.
The next one, although I think that's vital, there needs to be more participation to make it valid. And the one thing, and you know, because Doug's here, the one thing that, I don't know if this is true, that we keep hearing, that at least with the faculty and staff, if administration was not present at that meeting, that they would come.
We can try a year without us.
I'm willing to give it a try, because here's the thing, this is extremely important, but if we're only hearing from 2 people, we're basing everything on what 2 people, and those 2 people may not be a good
Yeah.
representation of what.
But that's not part of the goal, that's just how we implement it.
We're right, but we need the information too.
Well, one thing, yeah, but one thing that I'd be a little careful too, though, because, you know, we don't always have all the facts, you know, when we're.
Well, that's where you take
that
notes, but don't make
information,
promises. Thank you for
Yeah.
telling me, you write down the notes. Because if you talk to, everyone has their own interests, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, you know, what you need for a science teacher is going to be different than what you need for an English teacher. So if you were to say the science teacher showed up, yep, you all get new labs, and the English teacher said, well, I should have showed up and asked for books. You take the notes and then you research and what's the capability of doing something
That's
like
kind of what
that.
I'm saying, is you want more
Yeah.
people there, and we gotta be able to do that, because I don't know, if the,
And then even the people there, could be 1 or 2 people speak out and other people don't.
So, a thought that I'm having is, not just having administrators not come to all of them, but also, to make it more convenient. Because of COVID, people have gotten used to virtual meetings. So maybe rather than having 1 per group, we have 2, one of them face-to-face and one of them virtual at different points in the year.
I'm not going, so it's your decision.
I didn't mean it that way, Doug, I just wanted
You know,
to bring it up.
and then each group has the opportunity to have 2. One, you know, where, I mean, you have to keep in mind too, that for everything that we're talking about, you're talking about adding work
Time.
sessions. Now
Yeah.
you're talking about adding
I think you still have the one.
I think we just do
round
face-to-face.
tables. Yeah,
I think you still have the one, you have it face-to-face, because everybody in the community guarantee me, or guarantee you, they know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Which one did we have a lack of participation in? Because I was at student and faculty and they were both full.
If you look at percentage-wise, students really pretty good,
Yeah.
because they have them in lunches and they serve pizza and they come down. Faculty, you maybe had 15 people out of 300, so, you know, it's not a high percentage. But again,
And even our community roundtable, we had
2.
We had 2 people, and
Yeah.
one of them was, you know, well, I'm actually coming because I'm also a teacher in the district, and I'm working on my administrative
one
degree,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of here to,
And the one
in a
community
lot of
member
different
had
capacities.
a great point, it was valuable, but it was very specific
Right.
very specific,
to
yeah.
her situation, her student, which is awesome.
But it has to go back to, it goes back to administration.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very,
It's
yes.
nothing a board would take care of.
Right.
Glad she came in and told us so we could be taken
It was
care
really
of.
cool, but
Yeah.
it was a very specific thing,
Yep.
where there's nothing as a board that we could do with her exact,
Yeah.
thing, which is fine, I'm glad she came, because
So try it without administrators. I think it'd be important, though, to just for, you know, the administrators not there, to say, we are trying it this year without administrators, so some people don't come and go, well, we're the administrators.
Right.
You know, because you will get that too, because it's changed, and they won't have heard this
and I don't know if
discussion.
it's good or bad, just people had brought it up, and I thought it was at least worth, you know, bringing
That
it up.
one's removed. No admin. Okay,
Well,
ambassador
I don't think
program.
our goal doesn't have to say with no administrators.
No, it
That's
doesn't.
just how
It's just how we're doing it.
how we'll do it.
No, goal stays exactly the same.
Yeah, the goal will, or the objective will be worded the same, it's just how we implement it that will change.
I think the next one, you have to say a goal for how many times board ambassadors will go.
That is true. And I find that I still will go to something at a building, and I won't tell the administrator that I'm there as the board ambassador. I might see him and say, hey, hi,
Right, but that's only for their announcement. You can still report back. You were there, you
Yeah.
can still report back.
Because I have tried a couple of times, as a middle school ambassador, I'll go to a concert and I'll say, just to let you know, I'm here as the board ambassador if you want to announce that I'm here. And they have, and everybody kind of looks at you like, oh, I actually, as uncomfortable as it makes me, I think it's actually really important for the community to see that we are there.
I agree, but I think it's a double-edged sword. I did a couple things at Wales, and one of them I did where I just kind of showed up. You get to see it from a different view. The second that someone knows you're there, and the administrator almost feels a responsibility to kind of, I don't want to say cater to you, but to kind of like.
But we tell them not to. They still care about you, though.
They do. Yes. So
Especially you, Jim. I say, don't be nice to them.
Exactly. But I think it's good to do it both ways.
Yeah. But I think there you gotta add 3 times a year, 4 times a year, twice a year, once a year, whatever you guys think.
I think at least 4.
At least 4?
4. And then, but that's it, you do it as much as you can, and then, and that's okay, it's not that it's, okay, don't go, it's, you do as much as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, are you the middle school? High school? You're there every day.
But
So
you're
we don't
not
wanna hear
there
from
every
them.
day as a board member, you're there every day as a parent, as a coach.
Right. No,
No?
yeah, he does other things, or he'll call me and ask me a question, and I say, go in and ask.
Yeah, I think, it happens in a bunch of different ways, just kind of happened at this Friday's football game where all of a sudden you switch a hat real quick.
Yeah.
It happens.
Okay.
So, how many, 4 times? Excuse me, my back's a little sore today.
I think we should say number of times. 4 seems adequate.
Yeah.
I did learn something new from Peter Dobmeyer this past week when I met with him in Alma Primary, which might be useful. So he showed me the communication system, and I went onto our website and said, subscribe to all, right? So subscribing to all on the public website puts you in the community distribution list, which is good, but I was like, Peter, I'm not getting any of your updates from Alma Primary. So if you want specific building email and communication, just ask the principal to add you when he sends stuff out in listserv. Yeah.
I added, what was it?
4
Each
times a year.
ambassador shall attend 4 events per year. So an event could be you just
Faculty
going through the
meeting.
building, a faculty meeting, a
Play.
play, sporting event, walking around. Hey, I'm gonna meet the principal and walk around for an hour,
I'm going to the middle school dance.
art
with Heather.
show,
We're gonna be hall monitors, Gene.
hall monitors.
be
I'm the
Hall
parent, so I'll
monitors.
yell at people, and then you're the board member, you could just sit there and act look pretty.
Not allowed to dance. You could go to a dance, yeah.
Continue to communicate with the Iroquois community regarding budget and capital projects and to strive to increase community participation. That's the part right there, that second half of that sentence. Strive to increase community participation. How do you measure that, other than we have more people who came to vote? That's where I kind of
Well,
say,
observation
let's
too,
take a
though.
look at that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a measurement for that. There's different things that we can do. I mean, it's just, there's, you could, make announcements, on if something is important coming up on like local media. I think I think what happens too much is we'll do an event and then someone's like, I wish I would have known, I would have gone to that. So some of it's just word of mouth, some of it's just being at a football game and
Right.
Yeah.
So I had an example.
But our events are meetings. You know, those
Yeah.
are essentially our events, and we try to encourage as many people through as many avenues of communication to come. I don't think they want to hear a radio announcement that
Well, I
Iroquois
was thinking
Central
about
School District's having a board meeting.
yeah, I wasn't thinking about that.
You meant in general.
So, I mean, I'm focusing more on the things that we do as a board, not as a, you know, a football game or, you know, a sporting event.
Well, I just had a really good example of this, because I received feedback since I've been on the board to say that, you know, maybe the school doesn't offer enough to parents on preparing their kids for college, essay writing, grant applications. And I noticed it on the Iroquois High School site, and I don't even know if the PTO or somebody organized it, but I sent Doug an
Our
email
guidance
to say, hey,
department,
Doug, this is a really good thing to add the Monday message, because people
And it was in there.
say that maybe they're not prepared enough. So I'm hoping that will have a good
I was
turnout.
thinking,
Well, and the hardest thing is, we can continue to communicate, but part of communication is listening.
well, I was thinking a little bit more in line of Heather, and I kind of like what Chuck was saying. Yeah, if you're talking about board meetings, unless there's something that's interesting or controversial, just to the normal board meeting, the community's not gonna show up. They're just not riveting. Sorry, but they're not. So I guess what do we really mean by this?
You guys keep coming.
Yeah, but one of the things, and this is a discussion that I've had many times on the board, our budget work sessions, our budget meetings, it is so important to improve the attendance at those meetings so that our community understands exactly what is going on in the district. And so we always had made it a goal, you know, what can we do to try to draw, you know, more people in, other than to have some controversy, because that always brings the people. But and the same thing holds true just for our regular, you know, board meetings. You know, a lot of the misinformation that you see on social media would not be out there if we increased our participation and our stakeholders were getting the message directly from us. You know, not from a neighbor, not from somebody who heard something from somebody, you know, and we know how those things go. So I would love to be able to deliver our message firsthand to every single person in our district.
I'll send you their
You know,
addresses.
and that, so what
I have
can
a
we do to
thought.
try, I always looked at that increased
Yeah,
participation.
well, that's what, like, the roundtables were
On that
designed.
side, yeah.
The intention of the roundtables was part of
Sure,
that.
right.
We say a lot, you know, go to our website, go to our website. What I would like to see happen here then, it's so easy. We already have recordings of our meetings. Just put a link of the recording on Facebook, on Twitter, on whatever, so that they don't have to go navigate the website. They just click on that link and boom, here's
So
a
maybe that's-
clip of the budget.
Yeah.
Workshop.
And that's another good point in the discussion for another time, but our website, and to try to have it, I've seen other district
Yeah.
websites that are much easier to navigate than us. And it's much easier for community members to find out pertinent information much quicker than going through several layers of
Right.
menus.
But if we have,
So just remember, I think it was a couple of Friday memos ago, once the app is in place, then the website is going to be redesigned for over the summer of 2024, I believe it is.
So, like, Doug will put in his Monday message, the link, we can just make a clip of just the budget work session. It doesn't have to be the whole meeting. It's
Yeah,
just.
we
the
were
bu-
doing, we were actually doing that.
So, put that in your Monday message, but also have it be from the board on social media places. The more places we have that, the more likely somebody is to say, oh, I got a few minutes, I'm waiting in the car for Johnny to get out of practice, I'm gonna click
The
on it.
objective should
read it."
be, continue to communicate with everybody's community by posting excerpts of board meetings on Facebook, on social media,
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, because, I mean, I think that the district actually has, and Doug has done a good job communicating to the community what's going on with the mascot. And I didn't really get involved with it, but I was just saw it like on Next Door, where there were a bunch of people talking about it, hoping that within the town of Elma, they get to vote on it. And not what the mascot's gonna be, on whether we have to change it
Change
or
it or
not.
not.
And so, the information was out there, and then for one, that, we don't get to vote whether we change it or not, and it's not gonna be done at an Elma vote. It's just, so what I'm saying is, I think it's tough, people tend to pay attention to what they wanna pay attention to, when they wanna pay attention to.
Yeah,
So
and that's why you have to have it living there.
just,
so they can
just
get
a,
to it.
just a thought, right? So I'm on YouTube right now, and I Googled Iroquois Central School board meetings YouTube. So we actually have an official Iroquois Central School District channel that, let's take a wild guess how many subscribers we currently have.
3,
48.
48.
48.
That's not enough. So just send out that channel maybe, like, hey, tip of the day, did you know that we have
have a
our own
channel.
dedicated channel, and you can go here at any point in time and subscribe.
Yeah, but those are people that just subscribe to it as opposed to people that just go and view it.
True, yeah.
Okay.
But at
well,
least it's all
I
in one
mean,
spot, like every single meeting that we have.
That's a huge difference.
Just by putting a link on social
Because
media for
even
all board
on
meetings.
our,
So
if you
you'll-
go to
yeah, she has up in there in yellow.
our webpage, and you'll see our meeting being viewed, we used to see how many people were viewing if you went up to the
Yes.
upper left corner
not there anymore.
of the picture. Now it just tells you the number of subscribers to the channel, so you have no idea who's viewing. 2 people.
Bye, everyone.
And one's me.
One's you.
It is. I was hoping my body language would be okay. But also, like, I mean, even just looking at all the videos from the last month, we're averaging less than 50 views, 50.
And I don't think it's a school where, you just look at.
But that's, it.
Yeah.
In terms of goals, there it is. We'll put it out there, we'll put it on Facebook.
One of them-
And I can actually put it in my Monday messages too, so like,
We're obviously just
we
not
got-
a fun bunch. We need to do something.
Obviously.
I think you just need to select kind of bullet points and have, some informational meetings, if it's something that.
We need to make
it's interesting.
commercials.
No.
There you go.
but it gets to a point of
fun facts.
responsibility too.
Yeah, it does.
Where,
I mean, I hate to say
And
that.
and when was the last time, most people watched C-SPAN? Do you mean to watch, the congressional go on? It's just when there's something that gets
Yeah,
people riled up,
meetings, work sessions.
they pay attention to it. But we just gotta make sure it's available in as many places as possible, so people, have access.
And works,
All right,
yeah,
we're
and
gonna
work
get
sessions.
49
And I think that,
If I can get in.
that when they see it in
password.
multiple times, they'll see it in his message, then they'll see it on Facebook, they'll see it on Twitter, or whatever their social media is, and they'll have that moment of, oh, you know what, I really should click on this budget session and see what they're saying. And, if they see it several times, it'll probably be the third time where they go,
Well,
oh,
hopefully,
yeah, I wanted to
they'll
check that out.
follow.
And I threw them depending on the topic, I guarantee if it comes to, and it becomes official decision that like the 4th grade is going back into this building, I'm sure at that meeting, we will have a decent attendance, because that will get people, they'll be
That will get some
engaged
people
on that topic. I think topics are huge. I just believe it is.
And that's what by having the links there, where, we could just pull that one out and see the board discussion on the 4th grade moving to the main campus. The possible movement, I should probably get that,
Well,
possible movement.
Yes, exactly. But when that, because I just remember my first being involved with this board was when I was, when the II was being, I don't want to say, shuttered, but it was being, we were moving into the
Moving the
primary.
yeah.
That was a rather well-attended, and
Yeah.
I remember Doug, basically, I remember you saying, nothing really changes, they will still be able to do everything the same, but it just,
It's gonna be a different way.
that was a big, people were there for that.
Yep.
I think
Which I find ironic, where people are there, don't move it, now if you move it back, people would be there saying, don't move it back.
Right, exactly.
Here are all the problems that are gonna happen, we've experienced them.
Yeah, but, you know, Doug, when we did
We've
that,
done it.
we did have quite a bit of, you know, community involvement, you know,
Yeah.
with that. Because just, you know, before that, I don't know how many years, we had talked about, well, you know, given enrollment, let's take a look at our, you know,
Yeah.
physical
Dr.
footprint.
Frazier did it 2
And
years
it came
before
down
that,
to,
year
like,
before that,
yeah,
we talked about
can eliminate a
closings.
building, but we had a committee formed, the community said, you know what, for the extra cost to keep a building open in each one of the communities, we want to do that. And that was fine. And then, you know, in order to better utilize that space, that's when the fourth grade
And
was.
now it's, the whole thing is changing because of
And now it's,
UPK.
right, it's
Yep,
flipping.
and that, yeah,
I think so.
that's it. It's up there. I know, remember, you're not approving these tonight, you're just saying this is what's going to be looked at the board meeting for approval.
And I still think that I am glad and thankful that we did it this way, because if we would've tried to have this meeting within a board meeting,
Yeah, that's what I'm
It doesn't
saying, yeah.
work.
This kind of
And
stuff
can
is
I make a
better.
suggestion that we all bring our calendars with us, because I have a feeling we're gonna need to put some work sessions on the
Yes.
calendar. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
indeed.
Why?
It's pouring out again, isn't
yes, it is raining.
Oh, way to time it, you guys are awesome.
it? Impeccable.
We try.
Right. I like the way they look.
All right, we'll get the little bits and pieces in there tomorrow and get them out to everyone.
And then we're voting on these on Wednesday?
Are they on the agenda for Wednesday? No, so it'd be
So
October.
it'd be October?
It'd be October.
Okay,
That way the public has a chance to look at them and we're not adding something to agenda and rushing through it.
Yeah.
okay.
The board members who weren't here, a chance to.
Have some,
Yeah, exactly,
yep,
yeah.
okay. All right. Any recognition of guests? There's no guests to
No
be
guests.
recognized today?
Hi, Paul.
So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.